What's up, guys? Welcome back to Movie Rex. I'm Megan, and today I'm going to be taking a closer look at the movie Nefarious. So when this first came out, I did a short on it because I noticed that audiences loved it, critics hated it. Whenever that happens, I'm immediately intrigued and want to see it. Finally got to see it this past weekend. I did another short on it recommending it because I really enjoyed it. And I found that I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to take a deeper dive into it. So without further ado, let's talk about Nefarious.
Edward? Let me ask you some questions.
I'm not Edward. I'm a demon.
Demons aren't really a thing.
So fair warning, there will be spoilers ahead. And for anybody who has not seen it, this is a quick synopsis of the movie. A convicted serial killer has a psychiatric evaluation on the day of his scheduled execution to determine whether he is truly sane and therefore able to be executed. It is during that meeting that he tells the psychiatrist that he is a demon and that before the day is over, the psychiatrist will have committed 3 murders. So right off the bat, this is not your typical possession movie. There is nothing over the top. There's no crazy voices. There's no levitation. All the things that you're used to seeing in a standard possession movie are not in this one. This is 2 men sitting in a room pretty much the entire time, which in and of itself is very interesting because it is rare in film that you're really going to have just 2 main characters on film the entire time that are this captivating. Yes, of course, there's other characters in and out, but for the bulk of this movie, it's really Edward and Dr. James Martin, and they really do such an amazing job in this movie keeping you captivated. So again, this is not your typical possession movie. This movie really is not designed so much to scare you as much as it is to make you think. When the movie's over, I don't care if you're an atheist, a Christian, or what, you will be thinking about this film. It will get under your skin, and they just do such a great job with it. So again, when they sit down to meet, Edward tells Dr. James Martin that he is actually a demon and that he has possessed Edward and been working on this possession since Edward was a child. He goes in to tell him how it works, how people become possessed, and that it's a series of choices, really. That, it starts out with saying yes to certain temptations and keeps going and going and going until eventually they've said yes so many times that the demon inhabits their body. Now, the thing with this is that it does kind of fluctuate between, not often, but there's parts where Edward will come out. You can see that he is really being tortured. Now, of course, it's the whole, is he just schizophrenic or is he really possessed? And that's kind of like the whole thing with the movie. Again, because they don't use any kind of trickery, any kind of makeup, nothing. It is really just these two men sitting down and having a dialogue. Now, there's certain things that Nefarious knows about James in the film that really, starts making James really question. Because in the movie, he's actually an atheist. And he tells him, he's like, I'm not scared of any of this. Like, he doesn't believe in it. And throughout the movie, of course, things keep happening where he is ultimately convinced of what's going on. One scene in particular, and I think this is where a lot of the controversy surrounding the movie happens, where I don't get it. I feel like any kind of conversation should be able to be had, any kind of dialogue. Like, I don't think you should just automatically dislike something because a controversial topic comes up. So I don't know if that's really what did it with critics or what, but there's a scene where Dr. James ends up to leave and Nefarious says, "How's your girlfriend Melanie doing? Why aren't you, with her right now?" And we come to find out that his girlfriend is about to have an abortion. And of course, Dr. James is like, "How did you know this? How did you know this?" This whole scene is so intense, the way they film it. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on this. It's a very intense moment in the film, and it is pivotal to Dr. James kind of coming around to believing of what's really going on. So again, after this part, it shows Dr. James, he goes to call and check on his girlfriend to see how she's doing. And at this moment, another prison guard comes in to see Edward, and he asks him what he wants for his last meal.
Could I have the chocolate shake? Extra thick? Please don't mess it up. important to me. Please don't.
Excuse me. I've changed my mind. I won't have anything. I'm not hungry.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
This part I think is so important to the basis of this movie. And it shows later on, Edward, he asks about his last meal and the guard said, "You said you didn't want anything." And he's like, "No, I didn't say that." And I saw Sean Patrick Flannery in an interview on this movie, because I mean, I've looked up so many interviews. Whenever I love a movie so much, oh my gosh, I want to know everything about it. And he just said how it's really to show that this man is a tortured soul. I mean, he really, really is. And I think, I don't know much about demonic possession or anything like that. I mean, I am a Christian, but I don't know too much about it. I know these kinds of movies usually terrify me because I believe in this stuff, but I've never seen a movie really show how tortured the soul is of somebody that's possessed. And they did such a great job of showing that. And it was very subtle. Edward did not come through many times, but they just did such a great job. And Sean Patrick Flannery, I mean, I'm telling you, I think he should get all the awards for this movie. He did such a great job. It's just those subtleties in this movie that really, they just make you think. So to give you another example of how this movie really differs from other movies about possession, a lot of times it deals with a priest and the possessed, and it's really the battle between those two. Well, there's a moment when Dr. James calls a priest in, and at first, Nefarious stands up, and actually I saw on like a "did you catch that" moment type of thing where during the scene you can see horns come out of like kind of his hair, like his hair almost takes shape. I didn't catch it the first time, but I rewatched the movie and I did. So when you watch this, look for that. But anyway, so the priest comes in and Nefarious stands up, and the priest kind of calms him down and reassures him that people aren't possessed anymore, that it's we've learned over the years that it's really usually some kind of psychological breakdown, but that demons aren't real. And Nefarious basically understands that this priest does not truly believe. And all of a sudden he's put at ease and he sits back down, and you realize that there's no battle between the priest and and Nefarious. So it's just like little things like that. It's really between the psychiatrist and Nefarious. That's really where the battle is, because Nefarious is trying to, I think, take his soul. And he even asks him at one point if he can enter his body. The psychiatrist is like, "Yeah, sure, whatever," because he doesn't believe in this. And it's just, it is just so interesting to see the dynamic between the psychiatrist and the possessed, because usually it's not like that. Usually it is between the priest and the possessed. Another interesting thing I feel like about this movie is that the Nefarious keeps referring to Jesus as the carpenter. The carpenter, that's what he calls him. The carpenter would weep, the carpenter this. And I feel like, I think part of it has to do with naming him. He didn't want to call him by name, but I also feel like it's a way to make him more human. I've never seen a movie where he's referred to as that. Certain things about this film, the choices that they made, I found them so interesting. And again, it's just one of those movies that really make you think. It's not designed to scare you. I also saw that they had a priest, an actual exorcist, come in and kind of do like a consultation. And he said there was a line in the movie that he said was one of the most pivotal. And it was after, I forget what scene, but it might have been after the abortion scene or something happened where Dr. James got really mad. And he finally sat back down, and Nefarious says, "Are you ready for round 2? And the psychiatrist says, "I didn't know we were in a fight." And he said, "That's why you're losing." And the priest said that was one of the most pivotal moments in the movie. That's why you're losing, because you didn't realize you were in a fight. So again, by the time the movie's over, you basically come to realize that the message here is that there is a fight happening, whether people believe it or not, between good and evil. And I just found it so interesting the way that they did this. I honestly think that no matter what your religious background is, you're gonna enjoy this movie. It really, really makes you think. It is a psychological thriller, and it just, they just did such an amazing job with it. So I really hope that you get a chance to watch this. And a quick side note, as far as Sean Patrick Flanery, I actually got to meet him at one of the Monster Manias. I think it was my first Monster Mania. Him and Norman Reedus were there to promote Boondock Saints and to like take pictures and all that. And it was probably my favorite ever Monster Mania. This was before Norman Reedus was doing Walking Dead and everything. He had just done Blade. He's hung out outside with us. He was like drinking beers with us and hanging out. I mean, he was so awesome. And Sean Patrick Flanery, he wasn't outside, hanging out with us, but I saw him in the restaurant later that night eating with Norman Reedus. And I did like the thing that I think is so awful. And I went up to him while he was eating because I just really wanted to meet him and tell him how much I enjoyed Suicide Kings. It's one of my favorite movies. Suicide Kings is so good. If you haven't seen it, oh my God, you need to watch it. It's so good. But anyway, so I went up to him and I was like, hi, I'm really sorry, but I just, wanted to tell you I'm a big fan and I really enjoyed Suicide Kings. And he could not have been nicer. Such a nice person. So I think in general, anything he does, I'm going to automatically be like, oh, I want to watch that, because he was so humble. He was so kind. He was not upset at all that I was interrupting him and Norman Reedus's meals. They were both super nice. So I just had to add that because it was a really awesome moment. And now seeing this movie like years later, I'm like, yes, it's so cool that I got to meet him. He's just awesome. And also I'm pretty sure that they're coming out with a Boondock Saints 3. So another awesome news. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Nefarious. It was just such a great movie. It's available on Amazon. I think we rented it for $20, which normally I won't do, but I was so excited to watch this movie. I did not care. We watched it twice. It was so great. Do yourself a favor, watch this movie and let me know what you think, because it's that type of movie that it will leave you thinking. Certain moments in the movie, I mean, even at the end, and again, I'm spoiling certain things, so I'm sorry if you haven't seen this, but even at the end, after Edward is executed, and yes, that is one of the 3 that the psychiatrist murders because he knows he's not sane, and yet he still signs him off as sane so he can be executed because he hates everything that Edward's saying. So at the very end, after Edward is executed, Nefarious enters the body of James, and James pulls a gun out from a cop's waistband, and he's pointing it at everybody, and then he goes to point it at himself. And right before he pulls the trigger, he says, "God help me." And the trigger, he pulls it 3 times and nothing happens. And I just thought that was so amazing. Even my father, they watched this too. My parents, I told him how great it was. And even he called that part out. He just thought it was so interesting that, he's God help me. And then pulls the trigger and nothing happens. So I'm thinking, divine intervention. And Edward had told Dr. James earlier that he wanted him to basically write a book for him, a book that had already been written, but he wanted him to release it. And it was basically going to be the dark gospel. So at the end of the movie, Dr. James is on a Glenn Beck's show. Actually, Glenn Beck's in this one. And he tells him that he would not write the gospel, but basically took that book and rewrote the dark gospel as a warning to people so that they could be aware of what's really going on. And that whether they believe it or not, whether they want to admit it or not, that there is in fact a fight between good and evil. So it just, no matter what, it's going to make you think. It's a great movie. I would absolutely watch it. I'm probably going to wind up buying it. Honestly, I just thought it was so good. So again, it's available on Amazon. I hope you get a chance to watch it. If you do, please let me know what you think. I would love to hear it. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and be on the lookout for more movie rec videos. Bye.